listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I got to tell you something, people. The gentleman on my show today, he was on my show in March of 2014. And then, I don't know if I'll remember this, but like a year later, he was a guest star on NCIS, and I was a hand model. They brought me in for one day. I went with a second unit. I got a little apple box. I had they treated me like I was one of the stars, and I had lunch with him because he was in the where we eat, and he was there, and they gave lunch, and I ate with him, and me and Joanne watch him every night if we're awake at midnight on Cold Case, and he's always out there, he's working, and my guest is Jeremy Ratchford. How you doing, Jeremy?
Not too bad, brother. I remember that lunch.
Yeah, it was funny because I was sitting there, and I wasn't background because I was cast as a hand model. But there's a taboo where background should never eat with, an actor. So I checked in with background, and then I saw you, and I'm guessing some of the background people were probably like, "Look at that goddamn hand model. He gets to eat with the co-stars."
It's such a wild little world on set, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, because you've been a working actor for a really long time, and I know now the state of Hollywood. I talk to a lot of actors who they don't like Zoom auditioning, they don't like on-tape auditioning. They're used to being in person. What do you prefer? Because you come from the old school of you go into the room, you try to wow them, you get the energy. But what is your feeling now about how the industry's going, and do you enjoy it or not?
Great question, because it's coming up a lot. Because they'll send you the audition, and then they'll send you little bits of rules. Make sure there's no shadow. Make sure the person in the feeding or doing the other character isn't too close to the camera, so that their voice isn't louder than yours. Shoot it this way. Shoot it that way. And I'm lucky. I've got a friend of mine that's kind of he can light, he can shoot, he can act, and he can coach. But if he's not here, I remember years ago we were about to go on a family vacation, and I got a call to be the owner of a basketball team. And I'm on my private jet talking my rookie star off a ledge. And at the end of it, my wife turns to me and she says, "Do you want to join the Mile High Club?" Ha ha ha. And I was leaving the next morning, and we were going to be going into the north of Canada. So I was not going to be able to redo this. They sent the one scene, and I'm like, this is for a recurring role. They should have. You'd think they would have given you more. But I'm out of luck. I got nobody. So it was my now 21-year-old son. I think he was 10 at the time. And we set up the camera. And this was a camcorder, not even the phone. The phone's even now easier. But we record the scene, and during my slate, that's the thing you put at the beginning saying, "I'm Jeremy Ratchford," da-da-da-da. And because I knew, because you get the weirdest feedback, and I was worried they would say, I didn't get any kind of flirtation with his wife or anything. I was like, "I am Jeremy Ratchford, and for the record, the role of my wife is being played by my 10-year-old son." So just don't come back at me with, whatever bullshit, because I had to explain to my son what the Mile High Club was at 10. So those are built-in problems, I guess. Years ago when I was in Canada, we started sending tapes, but I was in my 20s. We had nothing to do. We were making money as an actor. I was working in construction, but we had a lot of time. So I had a crew up there, and we did some crazy stuff. I had a buddy of mine auditioning to play Friar Tuck, and for his slate, I set up a ladder against my house and I climbed up on the ladder and shot down, and he does it like he's praying to God. I had another one for ABC. It was to be the slob of a new Odd Couple, and I set it up. I had taped a Maple Leaf game, and the Leafs won it with 0.7 seconds left to go. And it was pandemonium. So we started the camera on that, and then we pan over to me, and it's pandemonium, and I'm eating candies or cheesies off my stomach. Totally unfair. I just gotta go, this is the ultimate slob. And for my slate on that, it starts on a closed door, and as it opens up, I'm sitting on the toilet profile. I'm about to wipe my ass, and I go, "What?" And I go, "Oh, Jeremy Ratchford, blah 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 blah," and I go, "Shut the door." And the door shuts, and I go, "Thank you." I was told that because of that slate, they would not send my audition any further up the chain. And then 6 months later, that network, I think it was ABC, was like floundering. And all of a sudden it was like, whatever happened to that guy with the slate? All of a sudden I got this slew of auditions and was like, oh, okay, now you're looking for somebody. But the problem with that too is sometimes if you show them that you're too creative, then they don't want you either. So, we were doing long lens stuff. I auditioned for a Tom Berenger movie, a cowboy movie. And there's one scene where we ride up, and it's just like, hey, do this and do that. And go, ah! So I ride up, and I'm sitting on a stool in my backyard with a foliage in the back. And I had this old billy club with a leather strand. So I used the strand in the camera. I'm like, okay, everybody, yeah. I start kind of miming it on horses, and then the camera pulls back and shows that I'm on a stool sitting on a club with the leather, and I kind of look at the camera like, like trying to have some fun. Because that's the other thing. Back in the day when you went in the room, you had back and forth. And you had a director finding out who you were, you're finding out who he is, and you get guidelines. I had one guy, Guido. Hey, you kiss me, Guido. I heard before I went in for that audition that he was known. You do your first presentation of what I bring to the table, and then you get what they'll tell you what they're looking for, or adjust it and what have you. Trying to see if you can take direction, I guess. But this guy was famous because he would say, could you do it again? But this time, I want you to be on a Ferris wheel in 1963. Okay. All right. So you do the same scene. And he threw another one at me. And then someone said, hey. And I said, look, I'm a border collie. You've got the Frisbee. And the smile came across his face. He goes, I love that. Coincidentally, went with Chris Penn, and he showed up the first day drunk, and they fired him, but they never did hire me.
So you've been doing this for a long time with the auditioning on the tapes, though, because it's a matter of, I always have been acting for a long time, and we're used to being in front of camera. For one, it may be easier for the tape, but if you're used to doing, now you're different because you were on a cold case for 7 years, so you weren't auditioning. That's like a lot of guys are auditioning all the time, like all the time. But for you, it must have been, nowadays it must be just different because you have to change, as you said, you have this guy who does a great job, but you have to change what you're used to.
Yeah. Now it's just up against a flat wall, and the camera is kind of stagnant. You can't do any camera movement. I had an audition just last week, where I got my character kind of says, "Oh, I gotta sit. There's a bedroom breaking out," and he's like overwhelmed. Well, I can't sit because that we'd have to move the camera, and the guy running lines is running the camera, but you can't. Like, I don't have a production team. And then I hear, who was it? Josh Brolin. I think Tarantino or somebody like that shot his audition for a movie that he got after he did the Tarantino flick. I think it's Tarantino. Can't remember, but yeah, great. So that's sometimes what we're up against, and there's a kind of a backlash too, because people without the means, again, like I had to commando it with my 10-year-old son that night, but yeah, I hear that there are very successful people that have sort of a studio room in their house, so it's lit and they can do anything they want. I've got to pull things off the wall. I got a key light, but it's before I got the key light, I had to do it in the back corner in the morning because it was when the best natural light was coming in. Because I don't have a DOP here to light the scene. And that's the other. I think I trust my friend Mitch, and he gives great advice. Like, we'll do a take, and he'll, if I want to tweak something, or he'll say, "Oh yeah, right in here," and it's great because when you're on your own, sometimes you don't. Like, I've heard actors record the other lines, set the camera up, hit play on their memos, and they're acting with themselves, and it's like, I don't get it. And yeah, the last time I was in the room was the way back, and I had a great conversation with the director. We had a great chat. He told me his dad was a cop and never pulled his gun. And the most dangerous, well, one of the most dangerous, it's a dangerous job regardless. But when you go to a domestic, there's a huge percentage that both participants turn against the cop. But he had this thing, he would go into a domestic and he'd find anything. He'd find anything in the room. Oh my God, my grandfather had a chair like that. Or, oh, my grandmother had a painting just like that. And he said the room would drop. Because now they're no longer fighting against each other. Like, oh yeah, that's my grandmother's painting, and it's like da 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 da. Oh yeah, my grandmother's chair, or guitar, whatever it was. He got them so far away from what they were called in for, and it was like, again, that was in the room with a guy I'm auditioning for. We're like talking cop talk, and we're talking dads, and it was like, oh, it was great, and I got the role. But yeah, that's the last time I was in the room.
It is crazy, it has been a long time, and some people don't think you'll ever get back in the room. Some say they do, but we'll find out. Hollywood's a changing game. Now, you are from Canada, I know that, and what made you want to get into acting? When you think back, because, for us in America, we have so much TV, and Canada there's a lot of TV too, but it's like, were you aspiring to be a actor on like a Canadian TV, or were you just like a Second City guy, or did you always plan to go to Hollywood, or what made you want to get into acting?
In fourth grade, I was the messenger in Rumpelstiltskin. I was a backup to the king. John Waldo was in fifth grade. And I got bit. I got bit by the bug. And one day, John couldn't do it, and I had to step up to be the king. So I was now the king, and I was a fifth grader, so to speak. but I remember being backstage. And our backstage, we had a theater inside the gymnasium, and they set up all the wooden chairs. And our side stage was 2 or 3 wooden tables turned on their sides to the wood. So we were all kind of behind there. That was our side stage, backstage. And to this day, I think when you get bit, for me, it's the theater warming up. So when you hear the audience coming in, you hear the murmur, and it gets louder, and it gets louder, people talking, and then the lights drop, and everything is silent, and it's magic. And I remember one day I was doing like Fiddler on the Roof at Center of the Square in Kitchener, Ontario, and it was backstage. It was a Sunday matinee, and they've got mics in the dressing or speakers in the dressing room, mics around, so you can hear people walking down, chatting, getting ready. Then the orchestra comes in here, and it's all warming up. And then you get a half-hour notice. Then you start hearing again the audience filling up, getting louder and louder. And then again the lights hit, and everything goes silent. I would listen. I wish I had a recording of that day, because I would listen to it on a Sunday morning. Because it's just, I don't know, it's the warming up. And then that, just specific to that show too, we got booed off stage. I was in the chorus. Matinees are for kids. So I started off, there was a big wedding scene. And I start off in the Jewish wedding. And then halfway through, I got to jump backstage, dress up in a Cossack uniform, and come in and terrorize a whole gang of us, throw everything over. And the kids just started booing us, and that's like, there's nothing better than kids going, "Boo!" We also had, this was kind of funny too, though. The orchestra came the next time, and they put on hard hats, because when we were throwing tables over, fruit was rolling off the stage and bonking them. So then we started taking orders. It's like, how many apples you want tonight?
So when do you start to get work? I know you're doing commercials in Canada. Was that some of your first work?
Yeah, I graduated high school in '84. I took a little, it was the first ever singing, dancing, acting thing at the Center of the Square. And I was driving down to Toronto. I got an agent. My first audition was to play Gilbert in Anne of Green Gables. I was 19 at the time. And when I sat down, the director started laughing. And he said, no offense to you or anything, or your acting, but you're going to look like a gorilla next to our Anne. I was 6 feet tall. I've got this voice. And I didn't get the part. But I got the next one, which was a horror movie. It was one step the worst horror movie of all time, Junior. There's always some wise ass that, hey, when's Junior coming out on DVD? I got that. Then I did commercial work, and I did TV series. I did a lot of cop reenactments, which it may sound ridiculous, but it's a fantastic training ground. I did over a dozen of them.
In Canada? In Canada?
Sonny Grasso, the Roy Schreider role in The French Connection, he ended up going up to Toronto and doing a show called Top Cops. And it was all cops' stories. And then we would reenact them. And the cop would be, kind of saying, hey, we were doing this, we were doing that. And it cut to us on the streets of Toronto, or wherever the show would have been, Chicago, New York, blah, blah, blah. And the training ground, it just exposed so many actors to insane situations. Like I had one where I'm just a cop on the beat, something happens, and I get pushed off a building, a couple of stories, and when the cops, my partners, show up, I've got to go into convulsions because I'm not going to make it, but like I have my body. So you're going from, hey, blah, 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 you're doing your death scene, and then, convulsions. It's like, well, it was a great training ground because I don't think they do that at the National Theater School.
Right.
Which I auditioned for and not got. And there are intense showdowns, and I played both ends. I played the cops and I played the bad guys. There was one episode where we had robbed a bank, and I take people hostage, and at the end of every scene I'm threatening to blow my head off. And I have this insane telephone call with my father, and I'm screaming at him. I had to do it over and over again, and someone came up to me and said, "You don't realize, but the entire crew is watching you because of what you're doing." Because it was just, I had to, almost have snot coming out of my nose, and I don't phone shit in. I was going crazy, so much so they actually had to call the doctor because I got a migraine for the first time in my life. And it was like, well, I did the entire day of, and it's like, where is that? That was the other one. Just on that level, I did Angel Eyes with J-Lo. And this is big money. And we had a diner scene. And in the middle of the diner scene, the gang goes by and shoots out the front window and kills a couple cops. So we set it up, we rehearse it, we got everything going, and it starts, cops are on having their sandwich. It's like, hey, blah, 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 blah. I think I did something about baby pigeons, or I don't know what I was. We're supposed to be just like, hey, blah, 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 blah. We're just talking. Blah, 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 blah. The window's good out, and it's like, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's screaming and yelling, and you're going and feeling pulses, and it's cut. Okay, we got to reset, which means they now have to bring in another window, and like the size, I'm talking, a diner size fucking front window. And so that takes about 45 minutes, and then you got to go again. So, but when you're in the moment, and you start off, hey, and well, your blood pressure goes up. They love the story. I was shooting Small Town Crime, and I had, I think a Fitbit. Yeah, the Fitbit was on, and it gives you your blood pressure or something like that. And it's the last shootout between John Hawkes and I, and we got AKs with full. They didn't lighten the load. They wanted the noise. They wanted the real. Bah, 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 bah. So it's loud. And the first take, bah, 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 bah. I checked my Fitbit after, and I was with blood pressure way up here. Second take, down here. Third take, I was like, wow, I'm getting calmer as this goes on.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how the Fitbit and stuff like that adds to this? Because I got back into stand-up comedy. I mean, I used to be professional, and I dabbled in it, and I did a show right after the pandemic, and I had a regular heartbeat that got fixed. So I always worry. I always check my heartbeat, and I'm doing this, and there's like 60 people there to see me that I met through doing business networking online during the pandemic. They had never met me. They heard I did comedy. They all come out to the show. So I'm worried if I go up and if I suck, they're going to go, Cooper's full of shit. He was never a comedian. He was awful. So I remember I'm going up to the stage and I'm looking at my Fitbit and it's at like, my heart rate's at like 145. And all I'm thinking is I'm going to have a stroke before I get on stage. And I'll never get up there. But we never thought about, like, when we were younger, we never thought about our Fitbit, but now it's like you check your watch, like how am I doing it? It's just funny, like with you, it's like that first scene, of course it's going to blow your mind because it's loud, but it's funny, once we get used to something, we just glide into it. So what brought you to LA? Because you're in Canada. I mean, was that your long-term objective to get to LA, or were you happy working in Canada?
I had a great career going in Canada. But I would say I think there's only so far you can go. Yeah, there's only so far you can go, and if you want, like I would have never met the Nelms brothers had I not come down here. I wouldn't have met Bruckheimer. I think, like, I may have. I mean, I did the Unforgiven up in Canada, but I remember during the Academy Awards, they had wanted a group of us to gather at someone's house that wasn't in the production, but was a friend of someone. And they wanted us all to go there, and Entertainment Tonight was going to film us watching the Academy Awards. And I had just moved into my first house. My brother had stayed that day because the cable was being set up, because I wanted to watch it. And I didn't want to go to somebody else's house. It just was like, eh. So I sat there in my dining room bedroom, because it was just bedlam. I was renovating, doing all this shit. So I had everything set up downstairs. And I watched it, and it was like that whole thing, like, holy fuck, I'm in an Academy Award winning movie. Like, how fucking cool is that? I'm from Kitchener, Ontario. This is Clint Eastwood. This is a Clint Eastwood Western. I grew up on Clint Eastwood Western. I got to work with Gene Hackman. I hung out with Richard Harris for 2 weeks because we had to get called in early for something special. And I got to work with Morgan Freeman. Like, wow, pinch me. And then I remember watching Entertainment Tonight the next day or something. And the only mention of it was they show people from that house. And it's like, oh, a group of extras got together in the basement of the house and watched the Academy Awards. And they kind of showed a 2-second clip, and that was it. And I was like, oh, thank God I didn't go. Yeah.
So, how did your career start? How is it working for you in LA? I want to get to what led you to Cold Case, because I said we watched that show, and plus it's so funny. The other night, 4th of July, we were actually in Philadelphia. Me and my wife and my mother-in-law stopped by a bar, because Philadelphia's like 15 minutes from me now, and so I'm back where I grew up. And it's so funny, you watch Cold Case, and there was an episode, the skateboarder, and it took place in Brewery Town. And we go to this place, this bar called the Black Taxi, in the middle of the day. We get a few pints, and we're talking to this guy who's a manager at a bar in Brewery Town. So for us, we relate to it. There was one episode, I grew up in Cherry Hill. There was an episode in Cherry Hill. But that was a show that ran for a long time. What was your steps? You were doing a lot of guest star stuff, but how did you end up getting the audition for Cold Case?
I was actually working on a show up in Canada 5 months of the year. We did 13 episodes a year called Blue Murder. And in between, I had a 3-year contract. My 3 years was up. So I was back here, and I got the call for the audition for Cold Case. And I walked in, and my character was described as he rarely wears a tie, but he's the go-to guy for a confession. So I walked in, and I was sitting there, and I went through the scene with Meredith, the show creator, and Mark Pellington, who was our kind of creative, artistic director, and directed the pilot. And I went through it once, and He said, could you show me this guy's physicality? Could you stand up and do it? And I said, sure. I smiled. I stood up. I put my hand in my pocket, and I did the exact same thing I did sitting there. Because there was no, there was no the physicality. Is I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you. There are sometimes in the business you'll come up against prop actors, guys that just have to be. I like the guys who can just stand and deliver, and so that's what I did. And they filmed that. Based on that, I got a call back, and it was down to 4 people. And it was my first real kick at a pilot season. Like I'd gone out for pilots, but this was the second step. And we went to Warner Brothers, and they were kind of having the top 4 of maybe 20 shows. So the hallways were just filled with actors getting ready to go in to the room that would have all the execs and CBS, Warner Brothers, Bruckheimer, all those guys. I remember pulling into the parking lot, and I was playing just around the corner from the light of day, Springsteen, live. And in the middle, I've been riding 100 miles, 200 miles. Ah. And a guy pulls in beside me in I can't even describe the car, just a sad little car by Cat Stevens. And he had this mustard sweater. And I just kind of went, no, you can't be up for my role. But if you are, I've already beat you. I just, no. Father and son, it's not the way they wound up for an audition, especially for Nick Vera. So they come out at one point and they say, hey, it's a big room, probably close to 40 people in there. Don't let it intimidate you. Don't let it intimidate you. And just, do it. And you have to walk in. You're coming in from backstage. So you're coming in, not backstage, from the behind where the audience is. So you're walking up alongside, and it's like bleachers in this fucking office. And there's 40 people there that are going to be deciding. And as I kind of got close to the casting director and the seat where I'm going to sit, I just said, how's everybody doing? And they heard my voice for the first time, and there was this little kind of nervous laughter of, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here. Boom. And I sat down and I said, so one snake turns to his buddy and he says, are we poisonous? Oh, sorry. One snake turns to his buddy and goes, are we poisonous? And his buddy says, I don't know, why? And I said, because I just bit my tongue. And I held it, and laughter, because you could hear it. It was sort of like, did that guy just swear? Did he, was this is that kind of a cute joke? And the laughter got. And I went, okay, you're ready for me. And I turned to the casting guy and I said, you ready to do this? And he went, yep. And we went through it, and I said, thank you, walked out, done. The hard part now is waiting. Because I did what I did, took the chances that I took, and now you got to wait. And then I start hearing, they're making decisions. And then I hear, because there would be, now the next guy up, sorry, my phone. The next part was going to go to do the same thing, but instead of, in front of Les Moonves, the president of CBS at the time. And they called up my manager and said, look, we're doing something different here and you got to trust us. The only thing that we're going to take to Moonves is Jeremy's original tape from the first audition. But that's the only thing that's going. We're not taking any other actors. We're just saying we're lining up behind this guy. This is the guy we want, and we don't have any other choices. Because their fear was, if So somehow I went in again with Les, and he went, "Who the fuck does this guy like?" They were like, "Oh, let's just take it all." I'm like, okay. So they go in and they present it, and they present he's making all the other decisions. A day goes by, another day goes by. I'm trying to do things to get away from the phone. I didn't have a cell phone, but I think I can't remember. It's a long time ago. I remember seeing a chair. We were at the mall walking around. There was this chair for $1,800. And I just sort of looked at him and went, Jesus, if things go a certain way, I could be able to afford a chair like that. And I go, oh, fuck, don't get out of here. And then I heard during the process, when my name came up, they go, well, what about Ratchford? And they go, who's that? The guy who did, yeah, the big guy with the voice. I was like, oh, a couple days later, what about Ratchford? Who's that? The guy who did it. Oh, yeah, the big guy with the voice. And then the big guy with the voice got the gig. And I remember, because then that's the start. And then you shoot a pilot, and you don't know. And then, it's a roll of the dice, but this time it worked.
Well, it's funny. As I said, I watched the show when it was on, when I get a chance, and then we watched it all the time. It's funny, my wife cracks up because every time we do watch it, I wait till the break and the opening credits, I go, oh, I do that voice that you hear in the very beginning. And my wife, she waits. Like, she'll sit there, like, I was asleep the other night, and I sort of woke up at like 11:59. Thought I was asleep, and I saw the clock, and I go, oh, she's like, Jesus Christ, he did it again. But, but so I didn't know, though, because I got on to Cold Case later, that in the beginning, Danny Pino wasn't on. There was another guy on. So what's that like when you get on a series like that, and then all of a sudden, what was that, 5 episodes into the first season, I think, where one of the other cast members leaves?
Yeah.
I mean, what's that like for an actor? Like, you think you have this ensemble.
I will tell you this. There was Tom Barry, there was another actor that shot the pilot. And I think, I don't even know if he's in the pilot or if he reshot the whole thing. So from the pilot cast was Justin Chambers. I'm sorry, I can't remember the other guys' names. The pilot was shot, and I had a friend inside CBS, and they get the DVDs of. We would do this every year. We kind of sit down with my friend, and we'd watch different pilots, and she would ask us to critique it because we've been in the business long enough for her to know that she could trust things like, oh, like that, that's funny. And the call goes out, she goes, I got the Cold Case pilot! Ah! And so we all meet over at my buddy Kevin's, and we sit down, and she brings out the DVD. And there was only one group shot taken on set. And it was cropped, and it cropped me out. So I was on the left side or whatever. And as the DVD went around, all of a sudden I'm not in the kind of Cold Case group. And there was rumor that there were some casting changes coming. So Jeffries was replaced, another character was removed, stuff like that. So out of the 5, already 2 are gone, and they haven't said anything. And I'm not in the picture, but I am in the pilot. Yeah, I was terrified. I was like, oh, fuck, really? This guy? And then I got, and as that was going, my show from Canada called up and said, we want to go a 4th year. So we'd like to have you back. They said the only problem with it is because it's sort of a different funding system. The government kind of gives you some money and then it slowly lessens. He said, we'd like to have you back, but you'd have to take a pay cut. And I kind of said, I was actually just about to call you guys because I can't come back. I just signed with Bruckheimer. Our show got picked up and I'm on it. And they couldn't have been more happy for me, which was great. That's the Canadian way. I likened it. They were doing a documentary. I looked at the Highland Gardens, the wayward home for Canadian actors and German punk bands. And, word went around. And it's like, holy shit. Like, so these guys were doing a documentary about the Canadians in there. And all of a sudden it's like, here we got a guy that just came off a Canadian show and just got called up to a Bruckheimer series CBS. And I just said, yeah, I feel like, I got called up, from the minor leagues and my team's going into the playoffs. And it's like, it's like, wow, it's great. Wild time.
So the first season, you get picked up. Now, when do you know that you're back for a second season? Because I've always heard it's like that. It's that waiting. Sometimes they'll say, well, you're automatically signed for 2 seasons. But that does, especially now, that happens occasionally. If you're John Hamm in a show, they'll sign you for 2 seasons. But when did you guys know? How far into the first season did you know that you were coming back?
In the first season, they took us aside. I think it was 11 episodes in. And they said, guys, we've already been picked up for next year. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. But I remember talking to my manager saying, I'm not doing anything until I get, as per your contract, we are renewing your option for another year. And I waited each year for that letter to kind of go.
Now, how does the set change, the feeling on the set change when you know you've been picked up for the second or the third season? Because I'm sure, you get through and all of a sudden you're getting picked up for the second season and you go, okay, I'm getting that network money for 23 episodes. Okay, next year I know I'm getting the network money for another 23 episodes. I mean, the whole cast, everyone should probably is just ecstatic because they know they're getting that network money for. And it's different now. You have 23 episodes back then. Now it's like 10. But some network does 15, some does 20. But how does the whole disposition of the set change? You guys just feel more unified? Like once you found out after the first season you were getting a second season, I mean, you guys must have gotten closer somehow.
Yeah, and that's from the top on down. Like Catherine is a consummate professional. In that first year, there were times we were down at the beach. We were down at the David Kelly Studios. And she was working so much that it made more sense for her to sleep in her dressing room rather than drive home and then come back the next morning, because it could be an hour, 2 hours. So here's this single woman sleeping on the couch in her dressing room. We had these big, huge dressing rooms, but they weren't, I remember at one point, they came into the dressing room and goes, why haven't you guys decorated? It's like, we don't know how long. I'm not, putting up wallpaper and, something. I was like, no, I got a couch and a desk. It's like having a hotel room. So she slept there some nights. Like the cleaning crew came in on her once. And they're like, oh my God. So she drove that, and I heard from a bunch of people at SAG that we were really known as a great show to be on. We were a cast that was not, there was no bullshit. Everyone knew their lines. We'd run them with you at any time. We were very sociable. There were some. We took one guy for dinner. Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks. I know he's in Terminator, and he played a transvestite. and he's like an elderly black man in a dress, and it was like, and he's used to being a ball buster. I've been doing. I've been watching Kojak. Unbelievable. During the pandemic, my youngest was 10 at the time, I think. We watched Columbo. We watched Starsky and we read all these 70s cop shows. And I just picked up this last year Kojak. My God, what Telly Savalas was doing back then is hysterical. There's a scene, I said it to a friend of mine, where there's a kind of a precociously effeminate hospital staffer that kind of says, well, why are you so curious? Telly Savalas turns and says, you know what curiosity did to the pussycat? Meow, baby. And I went, who? Who says that? Like, it was just, and I saw a great actor's studio with Peter Falk. Just, oh my God, I love him. And they were asking him Columbo questions, and he goes, what's your wife's name? Mrs. Columbo. And he goes, yeah, we never gave her a name. It was always my wife, Mrs. Columbo, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, I don't know how many relatives I had or if I had any. But he was always crediting them. I've got a nephew that works at this thing. And when the paint does this, it's sort of like what happened here. So he's always, I didn't solve it. My nephew solved it. My niece, she works in a doctor's office, and I got blah, blah. And then he also brought up just one more thing. And he said we had to keep coming up with new ways to go leave the room. Oh, one more. Out from the window. Oh, one more thing, and he was just so delightful. I just loved him. And then one of the funny things with the 70s cop shows is they have to rely on payphones. There's no instant communication. There's a Starsky and Hutch episode where they come screaming up to a telephone booth, jump out. We gotta do this and we gotta do that. Boom, back in the car. And I was like, holy shit. I've always been amazed sort of lately, sort of like in the business. Like when I started off, an hour-long episodic took 10 days. That was the average. They would book you for 10 days. And when you were done, you instinctually knew, like, if I shot an episode now, I wouldn't shave my goatee the very next day because they might call you up 3 days later and say, oh, we need an insert pickup of something that we missed. This is back when it was Avid. It was just coming up, the editing system. But by and large, and we didn't have cell phones. So they would leave, your call times on your machine. You have to check your machine, like all that stuff. We have sped up the process so much, and we still don't have the time. Now it's 7 days pretty much for an episode, but there's never enough time. And we've got instant communication. Again, going back to Angel Eyes. I was driving my wife, now ex-wife, but I was driving her to the airport. She'd come up for a little bit. And I got a call on the way to the airport saying, how fast can you get to set? I was like, well, where are you? I say, oh, this is where we are. I said, okay, 20 minutes. Just on that level, Terrence Howard was in the film, but he's, from what I saw then, he was a classic 45-minute wait every time he had to do something. And it wears thin on people. So they just started calling me in. I started kind of being in a lot more of that movie than I had originally been intended.
So, with Cold Case, I want to get back to Cold Case real quick. Your character really grows. I mean, it's a great character. Were the writers working with you to grow Nick Vera? Because, you go through your whole ups and downs, and then, so as a when did they start giving you when did they start saying we're going to develop your character more?
Kind of each year, we would have a lunch in the hiatus, and they'd kind of tell you where they wanted you to go. The only thing, I think it was the same, it was either 7 episodes in or 11 episodes in, I'm not sure. But they wanted to make me a germaphobe. And it was just in a script. So all of a sudden I'm wiping down telephones. And I kind of said, what's this? And he said, well, yeah, we want to make you a germaphobe. And I was like, well, Monk's got that. And the way I had kind of played it, you wouldn't be surprised if I had a mustard stain on my tie at 9 o'clock in the morning. And even the director of that episode kind of went, what is this? I said, I had no idea. Because my sanitizing the phone would have been, yeah. I said, if you give me something that happens, say I show up at a crime scene or something, and because of what's happened, I get sick, or, something has to happen that makes me all of a sudden go, whoa, like, holy shit, I didn't know this kind of potential was out there. Then you could turn it into, take that same, I could stay in character, but all of a sudden not be the germaphobe. It just didn't land. And I questioned it. I asked them about it, and it just kind of went away. Yeah.
Now, good.
And then at one point they came to me because we were trying to get pregnant. We'd had 2 miscarriages. And then we got specialists involved. And I now have 3 boys. And Dex was born in that first hiatus, to which I heard a rumor that the Bruckheimer camp was sort of like, can you get Jeremy to kind of tell the other cast members that if they're going to do it, try and plan for the hiatus, because it makes it a lot easier. And it was great. As you said earlier, knowing that we were picked up, and we had been trying. So that first hiatus, my son was born June 11th. May 10th. And we were on hiatus. And my only priority was he had to be fed every 3 hours or something like that. So I'd take him, we watched all late night television. I'd take him in. My wife would feed him. I'd take him back. And then in the morning, we'd switch it. We just had this, because I had no other priority than I knew I was going to be going back to work. We were set up, and we had the first 3 or 4 months, that was it, taking care of my kid. It was fantastic. Sorry, how did we get here?
No, we were talking about...
I'm wrong. What was that?
No, we were talking about your character growing. And,
sorry. No. So they came to me at one point, and they said, are you okay if you and your wife are having trouble getting pregnant? Can we put that in? And I said, yeah. Now that, Dex is born, no problem. If I was still in the middle of that, it'd be like, no, I don't want to live there. But no, I got my eye now, and you're going to have 2 more eventually. So I was okay with that. And that kind of provided that storyline of we're trying. And Nina played my wife, Nina Simasco, right? And I remember it was the day before Valentine's Day. We were shooting on Valentine's Day. Oh, no, the day after. And that's when we're breaking up. And I've talked to John Finn, the boss, say, that we were trying what we can. I don't know what's going on. And we break up. And this is this was sort of the power of it. So we have a scene. We're breaking up an 11-year marriage, and we were high school sweethearts, I think. And we come in and we shoot it both ways the day after Valentine's Day. And I said, that really ruined my Valentine's yesterday. We got to plan something in the future because I was getting ready for this. This is a marriage ending. We shot it, and Nina came up to me and she goes, wow, that didn't go at all the way I thought it was going to go. And we both kind of we came with what we were doing, and as the scene progressed, it evolved into something completely different. And the last shot, I think, is a rocking chair, an empty rocking chair, and it's like a sadness. It wasn't like a couple going, fuck this and fuck you. It was like, it was just sadness. I had several people come up to me, one person on set and then on the streets. A few people said, I was in that room. I married my high school sweetheart. I said, no. I'm getting verklempt. And then I had some people, was in a thrift store. I found a great fedora. With someone, people had, I think, my son on my back, but people recognized my voice and then kind of go, hey, oh yeah, you're that guy from that show. I'm like, yeah. But I'm not grumpy. I got my kid. I'm happy. And then this one woman, she goes, I can't believe the way you talk to your wife. And I was like, that's a character. That's scripted. Nina is a lovely, beautiful person. But no, we didn't. And then full circle, I had a featured episode, was it the last year? Where I put someone in jail thinking he was a coward for not rescuing his son from a burning building. And as I go through it, I find out that it would have been 1,200. Like it's physically impossible for him to have done it. And he tried. But he gets killed in jail and the family's angry at me. And I get a blackout drunk and crash my car. I think I called Lily and just said, I think I killed somebody.
Yeah, that was just on. I just saw that episode like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So now it's like, the audience is like, did he kill someone tonight? And holy shit. And it's like, no, I'm in my head when I killed a guy, in jail. And I go, holy shit. The show always did this to me too. At the end, you're like, oh. I go back to Nina's, and she's remarried, and I'm at the door, a disheveled mess, and she's like, "Oh, what are you?" And I was like, "Hey," and she goes, "Just a sec, I got to get my kid ready for school." Clint, da 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 da. And I love the fact that he was Clint. Like that would have been a name that Nick Vera would have loved to have given his son. And I have that moment, it's that wild moment of, you had children. So was it me? And then it's in that thing of, I got to get out of here. Because I think she turns back and I'm fucking gone. Because it was like, still having the integrity of, like, I'm not going to meet your son and have my heart broken, or have him meet your ex-husband who's a fucking mess. And I just beat it up a notch. And as you know, Zwarek, he shot that. He passed about a month ago. he was lovely. And the funny thing is, we're all on we got a texting thread, the Cold Case gang, and we just throw up stuff. But I'm watching Kojak, directed by Janos Zwarek. I was like, I took a screenshot, put it up, and I think 3 days later he died. And everyone was like, oh my God, like, oh, this is so tragic. And Catherine put in the thread saying, look, we did a show about dead people. And this is so unique that Jeannot reached out to us through Kojak in a screenshot. He was in our hearts the day that he left. I was like, yeah. It's a cold case premise, I guess.
Well, here's a cold case question. Did you guys know the show was ending? Because that last episode, me and Joanne were watching it, and I was like, because we recorded it, because she had to go to see her niece, her grandniece, and I had to do something. So it was on Star TV, as I said, and I was like, and on Thursday they play 4 episodes. So I recorded it. And when we watched it, because you forget how long ago, and it's like, what happened? Because it wasn't, she might go with the FBI, So what happened? Did you guys know you were getting canceled, or was it just something that someone decided to stop, or what was the ultimate ending to Cold Case? What happened? Because you were on for 7 seasons?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still answering questions about that. What happened was we didn't know. And they kept the crew, they kept us, they kept the stages, everything over the hiatus. And 10 minutes before the upfronts, we got a call that said they're not renewing us. So it was gone. And, a little deeper, we were deemed too expensive. But at the same time, they gave Charlie Sheen $1 million bonus per episode that lasted about 6 weeks, I think, till he lost his mind. And then I know that someone at the network got a $50 million bonus that year. And we were tossed aside. And so there was nowhere. And I remember my last take. It's taking a gun, or putting a gun. I can't look. It's amazing, man. I've seen some of the reruns come up, and I'm watching for 10 minutes going, I don't remember this at all. And then something will happen, and I'll go, oh yeah, okay, fuck, oh wow, when did we do the roller skating episode? But I remember, the props guy was there with the gun, and the camera guy, like all my gang. And I turned out, you said, hey guys, for what it's worth, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but if this is my last shot with you guys, I really fucking enjoyed every second. And they were like, yeah, it's right. It was like, hey, really? Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, we didn't get to thank the gang. Like none of us knew, and the fact that the other part of that is, if you keep us in limbo, we can't look for other work. Right? If we're going to go back, I can't do a pilot season. And if you're a crew member and you're thinking, oh, this has been my gig for 7 years, and all of a sudden 4 months goes by, and then 10 minutes before the rug's pulled out, it's like, I just. But again, there's been a lot of talk lately. This business is a business now. It's not an art form. And they're trying to get tax breaks or funding to bring work back to Los Angeles. But the ecosystem is incredible. And when you find out, everyone thrives when this business thrives. So that's why Atlanta, all over the place. But they did something in New Mexico where they gave them government buildings for free. So their locations, no cost. And it's all nickel and diming it to a point. What's the 3 rule? Fast, good quality, or cheap. You can only get 2. If you want it fast with good quality, it's going to cost you. If you want it cheap with good quality, it's going to take time. I don't know. There's almost like, I don't know how to articulate it, but there's a meanness to the corporate end. I did hear a friend of mine's neighbor did contract negotiations, and their kind of little was they always wanted to make sure they had a provision that if you're the actor involved, you can't opt out, but at any second they can kick you. And it just, I don't know. And then I will tell you this: I worked up in St. John's with a guy, Alan Hocko, and we shot in St. Pierre, which is technically France. It's an island off Newfoundland, and we all showed up. We had to take the same flight. The whole crew's on the same plane, and then we took over this town, all the hotel rooms. And then the first night, we all went out for dinner, chatting, telling stories, and I just kind of went, "Oh, and this is the way it used to be. We're here, where the carnival has arrived, and we're all breaking bread together." And I ended up at the hotel. I couldn't stay at the fancy place because they booked every room. And so I was in the grip wing at this other place. And I see the first day we're walking back and forth, and all the doors in the hotel are open because they all know each other. They're having beers, going back and forth, and I'm, hey guys, da, da, da. And then the next day they kind of go, "Oh, you're actually an actor on this thing. What are you doing on our floor?" I was like, "No, who gives a fuck?" But it was that sense of community, and then just because that's triggered, it was St. Pierre. This is the other part of the business too that sometimes it gets away, but it was funny dealing with the French. We had to have a police chase through St. Pierre. So a St. Pierre cop car chasing another car. And we asked for a police escort. That's what we do here. You lock things off and you do things this way. And the police went, what are you doing? And it's like, we're having a police car chasing you. So you're going to have a police car chasing another car, and now you want a police car? To what? And they went, "You have your police car." Okay, yeah, that fucking makes sense too, doesn't it? And then that just triggered another one, the famous, on the streets of Toronto. There was a perch snatching scene on Yonge Street. The cameras are rolling. The guy runs up, takes the purse, sprinting down, and a completely normal public bystander took him the fuck out. And the crew had the race going, we're shooting! Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's one of the funny ones. Watching Kojak. They don't walk off the streets. So there are times when they're shooting something, they're shooting a conversation in a telephone booth. The camera's across the street, but you see there's a corner and there's a shit ton of people on the corner. Obviously, he said, don't come any further. But they're all staring at Harvey Keitel in the phone booth. Harvey Keitel's in the pilot. I don't think he was in the phone booth, but they got all they all. You see cop cars whizzing by, people watching like, whoa, oh wow, this is exciting. And the other thing is, no one's fat on the streets of New York in the early '70s. No one is fat.
Well,
wild to watch.
There you go. A few more questions. Looking back at Cold Case, what do you think are some of your best memories from Cold Case?
Whew. I'll give you this one because this one makes me laugh. Because again, I've been described as someone said, "Oh, you mean the kind of grumpy guy?" I'm harsh, but when it comes down to it, I'm, fucking gummy bear. And in Tracy's introduction episode, I find a baby in a carriage outside the police station. And I looked around like, and this is in the middle of knowing I can't have children if I'm trying, and now there's an abandoned child. And that starts getting the heartstrings going. So now, I'm inside the office, and I'm kind of rocking the baby, and I'm on the phone with child services, kind of going, like, what's going on? And I think I end up holding the baby in one of the interrogation rooms at some point. But Tracy's character comes in, and I'm doing this. And she said, "Do you know where I can find, I think probably Lieutenant Stillman?" And I'm like, "I'm kind of busy. Just blow around. I don't have time for anything else but what I'm doing." And it was so funny because the director goes on and goes, I've never seen the show. So that was a very odd thing to say. At least watch an episode before you come in. But he said, "You're being kind of gruff." And I had to look at him and say, "That's kind of my thing. If you've never watched the show, you don't know what I'm doing, then ask somebody," because that was one of my favorite kind of like, what? Okay. And then I remember too, James Whitmore Jr., how I love that man. I remember working with Clooney, and he said Whitmore's in his top 3 of all time. He's just, all right. We had another one. He was another one that came, and he took me aside on his first. He goes, I've been watching the show. He goes, "Oh man, I thought you were going to be a miserable hard ass to work with." And I was wearing, I had this luau shirt on with dancing pigs or something like this, and he was just like, "Oh my god!" Like, and he wrote me the nicest letter at the end. Again, really emotional. I don't know why. But he had one. My high school sweetheart comes to me and says that her husband is being bad. And the scene is set in my car, and we're having a couple of beers in the car, and it's just 2 people like what could have been. And we're just so, it's just this little bubble. And again, I don't know what could have been, I guess maybe is what it is. But it's the last shot of the night, and we're downtown. And it's like when the horse sees the barn. In between takes, anytime we're not rolling, shit is being packed into trucks as fast as possible. So when they say that's a wrap, it's the last pieces go in, and everyone just fucking makes a run for Dodge. And Jimmy comes over, we've done a take, and we're shooting both ways so that, we're both in the same moment. It's not, we're doing your take and then my take was we're shooting. And Jimmy comes over, and he's like, And right before he had got there, she turned and she goes, "That felt kind of poo." I just loved it. It was poo. It wasn't shit. It was. She wasn't in that mode. It was like, and Jimmy comes over and goes like, yeah, da 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 da. And I said, we got a feeling we did it. And he goes, stop! We're going again. And bam, everything stopped. Camera started rolling. We did another one and got the day. Wow, I am really not prepared to be as emotional as I'm getting with this stuff. Well, it was great.
Well, there you go. You're getting emotional.
Yep.
So, Anyway, we got to wrap it up. I want to ask you, I always ask my guests this final question. Looking back at your career, and you've had a great career, what are some things that make you proud? It can be personal, it can be professional, but looking back at your body of work, because you've been working for a long time, you run a hit series for 7 years, what makes you proud?
I did a movie called Small Gifts back in 1994, maybe? And it's a small two-hander. Jessica Steen and I. Rick Waugh is in it. David Adams Richards wrote it, and he's an award-winning author in Canada, and just a gem of a guy. But it's a couple surviving Christmas with barely $1. And kind of, I guess, the tough newspaper compared us to The Gift of the Magi meets It's a Wonderful Life. That's for this little CBC Christmas movie. We got second place behind the piano at the Atlantic Film Festival. And it's still in my heart. I wouldn't say if it's the best thing I've done, but the one that I love it. I love it. I'm really proud of that movie. The most fun as a character that I had, I played Dwayne Dayton in Moonshine Highway. I went in for a hillbilly, got along with the director and stepped out, and I was chatting with the producer. And they called me back and said, we'd like you to come in and read for this other role. They sent me the script, and when I read it, the character says, that guy thinks he's Elvis. And that's when I went, I got to have this. I got to have this. I got to have this. And I got it. I mean, as I talked earlier, the Unforgiven, you can't, there's so many things happened on that movie that are I had a big, huge moment at the end. How much time you got? This is a story I've been told a few times, but I had to leave early. They did the cast photo that day, so everyone's on set. We're shooting it late at night. And they've got to get me out to the Red Eye because I had to go to Montreal to play a stockbroker in an FB film. And it's the scene where we bring Morgan Freeman in the posse. So we come riding in on the horses, and he's got the Spencer rifle. And Spencer rifle's a heavy, heavy gun. And I've got to throw it from my horse to Hackman, who's up on the stairs. And I got to throw it with enough arc that he can catch it. I got to make it look like it's everything. I do this every day. And I got to do it so I don't fuck it up and the gun hits Hackman. It's a chore. And they say, you know what, we're going to go with the rubber gun because it's lighter. So we do the first rehearsal with that, and the gun, well, and I see Hackman go over to Eastwood. Like, yeah, we're not going to use the rubber gun. So we go back to the real gun. So we rehearse, and they set up for the take, and now they light the torches on the outside of the sheriff's office. First take, we come in, and my horse just goes, oh, fire, oh, what? And I'm on this horse with the gun. It's like, oh, shit. And he rears up, and I'm just like, get rid of the fucking gun. So I just throw it as far as I can over my shoulder, not that way, towards that. Horse rears up, spins around, sends me. I land on the fucking rifle that I threw away, and I land on my period sidearm, my whatever Colt, whatever it was. And it's just, it's fucking bone on metal off a horse. Hooves kind of kick above me. It's like, fuck. Horse takes off, and I get up, and again, everyone's there because we just done the cast photo kind of thing, and it's backlit. Like we done the cast photo earlier in the day when it was bright, but everyone stayed to watch this scene because it was so backlit, smoke, and all this stuff. Amazing. And I get up, and there's that feeling of, is the actor going to freak out? You know, is this going to, are we going to have to like fucking wait an hour for him to, is he broke anything? Do we know? And I get up and I go, I'm okay. And the thing with Eastwood, he's always imitating John Wayne. And I found out later that the two of them didn't get along at all, which is kind of funny. But he comes down the stairs, and because he would go ahead and make my day. Like it was like, it's just so funny. Hearing his lines, but with Wayne's. So he comes down the stairs, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, you'll be the only limping stockbroker tomorrow. And I went, give me 50 million allied at 38, which was one of my lines. Everyone starts laughing. It's like, okay, he's cool. They come over to me and they said, are you okay if we bring you a new horse? I said, yeah, I'm good. And Buddy Van Horn sides up to me. He was like my grandfather on the shoot. He was just, I loved him. And he comes up to me and he just says, not so anyone can hear it, but he goes, and not looking at me in the eyes, he goes, no, that hurt. So when you get on that plane tonight, you get some ice on your elbow and the knee. He had seen exactly where I hit. And I was just like, anyone? I was like, so they bring in a new horse. I get up on it. And Morgan Freeman was there. He says, well, you look good. And I had heard from the Wranglers. He was always out with the riders. And I guess that morning, they stopped at a pond for the horses to have a little drink. He had his leg over the saddle. He's having a cigarette. And the horse just kind of goes and drops him in the drink. And we hear it. So he says, well, you look good. And I said, well, at least I didn't get bucked into a pond and fuck up my wardrobe for the next shot. And I went, no! In my head, I went, fuck! He had in front of everybody. It's like I'm trying to get the words back in. All the Wranglers, all the stunt guys are just like, oh, holy shit! And like, it came out that fast. Everyone else, and I will give Morgan Freeman this, he took it. He smiled. And I think I probably got more respect in that moment just for saying what I said than had I saved people from a burning building. It was just like, yeah, I let him have it, that I wasn't, taking it or what have you. And that was a fun moment. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Jeremy, I want to thank you for coming back on. It was good to get you back here. Good to talk to you. I said I've been watching Cold Case so much lately, I had to get you back on. And so people, go look up Jeremy Ratchford on IMDb. Go watch all those old. Watch Cold Case, especially if you live in the Philly area. It's great because I said they mentioned Cherry Hill, they mentioned this, and I always crack up. You hear these towns, and Philly's changed so much. Since that show has been shot. I mean, the whole area has changed. But go check it out. Go watch his work. Keep following me. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 1,040 episodes there. You can email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. Remember, the Coop Tank is my business podcast. You can find that on YouTube. Also, Coop's Comedy Corner. I have a lot of comics I know. Emmy-winning writers. Check that out. It's on YouTube. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.